Morning, and thank
Good morning.
you.
Good morning.
Good morning to all of you. It's so great to see all of you, to be here in person, to have an opportunity to reconnect a little bit. And I am thrilled that we have an opportunity to have Microsoft and Amazon on the stage with us at our annual meeting. I think for many in this room who've come to this event year after year, in some cases for decades, hopefully what our audience has taken away is Syracuse finding ways to move up the value chain and be in conversations that are ever increasing in their global relevance. And the fact that we have partners like all of you here with us today, I think speaks volumes to the kinds of leadership that both of your companies are providing in the global marketplace. But it also, I think, speaks to our efforts here regionally to be relevant to companies like Microsoft and Amazon. So I'd love to just give you, in your own words, just a chance to introduce yourselves a little bit about your role and about what it is that you're sort of most excited about in the role in this conversation this morning.
First of all, thank you so much, Rob and CenterState CEO. Thank you for the amazing emceeing this morning and hosting. And first, congrats to all the winners. This is incredible. I was just listening to from everything from the vaccines to furniture, like every part of the community that needs to be present was here this morning. So I just wanted to say thank you, and you truly are transformational. And I remember going to breakfast like this all the time, and then just the energy. I'm so excited to be back, and I'm so excited to actually be back with you to kind of break that drought here in Syracuse. So very quickly, our mission at Microsoft is where we always start and anchor our work, and that is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. It's a big mission, but we, of course, break that down into pieces. And part of the great honor that I have is the opportunity to really think about who is going to be left behind in that mission, and how can we really invest in that space, not just ourselves, because it's not something that one company or even two companies could solve alone, but how do we do that in partnership with governments, with other nonprofits, with other private sector partners. And specifically, my kind of portfolio really focuses on exactly what Rob was mentioning, that we're thinking about those people that are excluded. How do we use data to think about the most in-demand careers? How do we pull together learning paths and certificates and opportunities for those individuals? And then ultimately, how do we connect them to a job? And because a lot of the roles right now are in technology, every job is a tech-enabled job. Every job requires a level of digital fluency. That's really the space that we are looking to play. We're very excited to have this opportunity to learn in Syracuse from all of you, from Lemoyne College, from CenterState CEO, from Syracuse Surge, so that we can go further faster. Thanks.
How do I follow that? First, I just want to thank Rob, Krista, Kevin, all of our friends at CenterState for being so welcoming of Amazon, not just during my time working for the company just shy of a year, but as we've, really tried to invest and grow our footprint here in central New York. I see Mayor Walsh and County Executive Ryan McMahon here as well. And just one of the things I've been personally struck by in this region is just how willing both, the private sector, the public sector, all of the community partners here in this room are willing to just put aside petty differences, roll up their sleeves, and do what's right for the people of this region. So I commend you all for doing that hard work, and we're just really thrilled to be a part of it, a small part of it, as we build roots here as well. So a little bit about me. I've been with Amazon just shy of a year. I was really excited about this role as a working mom of, 4 daughters. Amazon is like my personal assistant. In terms of, and this, this is not the PSA of someone who works there. It's someone who, during the pandemic, was incredibly reliant on the convenience provided by my now employer. But anyway, all joking aside, that being said, I did order a mattress at Raymore and Flanagan, and it got delivered next day. So let's just keep that amongst friends. But in any case, I have a really great job because I get to sort of, lead a relatively new team to help figure out how to be a more trusted community partner in the places where, we're growing and we have operations. And so we have a small but dynamic team that, is trying to figure out what Amazon can do to help this community flourish. We also have, a self-interest in that because we want to ensure that our students, as Naria mentioned, are prepared for the jobs of the future. We feel like our jobs are the jobs of the future in technology. And so, whether that's investing in STEM education, or whether that's just giving back to the community so that everybody's got a fair shot, we're trying to roll up our sleeves to do that and listen to all of you and hopefully learn something from the community partners that were awarded today about how to do it well. So I'm excited to be here and, continue to learn from you all. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, we're thrilled to have you both. Naria, I'll maybe start with you. I think when I listen to you articulate Microsoft's vision, I run a not-for-profit organization. There are a lot of people in this room that run not-for-profit organizations. That mission sounds like one you would find coming from a not-for-profit organization, but you are a highly profitable, highly successful, for-profit tech company. Help us understand how that mission and all that you and others do to embody it, how it represents what you and I talked about the other day, this sort of changing nature of leadership and expectations for business leaders in particular.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I actually share a little bit about my background. You heard in the bio, too, that, I'm relatively new to the corporate philanthropy universe and have definitely been on the nonprofit side as well. And one of the things that I was so, actually just talked to a recent employee that joined. I said, hey, what surprised you about your first 2 weeks? And she said something that really resonated with me, too, is that, because she came from the Obama Foundation, and she was saying, we're so mission-focused and mission-driven, but gosh, Microsoft, that's, you expect it in philanthropies, but throughout the whole company, it's all about the mission. And it is such a broad, very ambitious, every organization and person on the planet. But I do think that, we take that really seriously, and we start not only from, individuals within the company, but of course our customers and of course our communities as well. And I think, Rob, you and I were talking about kind of the recent surveys that have noted how people are looking to the private sector and often to companies to show leadership and to lead. That's somehow, in a lot of ways, potentially frightening, I think. We could probably agree on that. But there's also this amazing, like Spider-Man-like type opportunity, because I think with great responsibility, great leadership is called upon. And I'm actually really proud of the employees of Microsoft who actually push us on issues and say, hey, is this a stance that the company should take? I'm really proud of the way that the company listens to employees and listens to the community. And I think that there are so many ways that companies can not only really lead in this area, but also show with data and kind of show their impact and be held accountable to that impact as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't also introduce my colleague from Microsoft, one of those employees that pushes us to do better, Ariana Kaplan, who is our Government Affairs lead for New York as well.
Great. Thank you. Jennifer, at sort of long last, I know for many of us here in Central New York who've been working with Amazon now for several years, is this small little project up in Clay comes to fruition. I'm looking at the county executive who has obviously worked overtime for many years to make this a reality. You're opening next week, and it's hopefully I'm not breaking news here. You're opening next week, and you're providing 1,500 jobs into our community. And from the beginning of this process, what I have found, I remember early on when it became public that Amazon was coming here, I had lots of people ask me about what it's like to work with Amazon. I hear they're hard to work with. Our experience has been totally different. And in fact, when early on in the process we had conversations with you and your team around engaging our community partners so that more of those 1,500 employees could come from parts of our community that haven't historically had opportunity, the answer wasn't no. The answer was, okay, let's sit down with those community partners and figure it out. Talk to us a little bit about that philosophy and how you think of the investments that you are making in those 1,500 people here in Central New York.
Sure. Thank you for that. And if we're ever not that easy to work with, we want to hear that too. But I think one of the things I like to think about is there's two ways we can invest in the communities where we operate. One is to try our best to sort of localize a lot of the global and the national programs that the company's investing considerable resources in, and we want to make sure those resources also land here in Central New York. But one of the things that's been really great about this partnership with CenterState and with the local elected officials and others is that we also have an opportunity to really lean into the hyper-local groups that are doing the work right here. And so, because we're here in New York and because our team is growing here in New York, it allows us to not just rely on some of those national programs, but also to truly kind of, I look at the screen and it says transcend. We always talk about we don't want to have transactional relationships in the communities where we operate. We want to have transformational relationships in the communities where we operate. And so as part of that, we've been listening and learning and hearing from some of these hyperlocal partners. I've had the good fortune of, being able to work with Lauren at Most and figure out ways that we can support some of their programming. The Good Life Foundation is another example right here in Syracuse. I saw the rescue mission was being nominated for an award today, and we've been, doing our best to support their efforts. And actually, someone on my team was just invited to join their board. So we're truly trying to sort of not just sort of come up here, cut some checks, and then never be seen again. We want to be a part of this community, and so we're, starting, with my team, but hopefully when this facility gets open next week, those local leaders will be in this room working with you all to make it happen and sustain it over time. The other thing that's, I think, along the lines of what Naria mentioned that's really important to us at Amazon is working with our academic institutions to ensure that, the skills and the training that they're providing are the skills and the training that we're hiring for. And so that it's not just about educational credentials, but a real pipeline to jobs. And so, whether it's Amazon Web Services and the cloud computing curriculum that they have in partnership with SUNY schools, we want to make sure our community colleges and, the SUNY system are really training our, next generation of workforce for the jobs that we have right here in Central New York and making those links ahead of time so that those, credentials and degrees actually, mean something for our business and for the jobs and can help, sustain the innovation economy here in Central New York. So it's a lot of work to do. We're excited to do it. And, I think at the root of that is just trying to understand, where the gaps are and how we can play a role in identifying solutions.
So Naria, I want to pick up on something you said. You talked about how every job now requires a level of digital literacy and fluency. And I think this is something that we've seen, this sort of tech transformation, digital inclusion, over the course of the last many years. Our workforce team, Dominic and Amy and others, have been working so hard on it. I'm just curious about Microsoft's view on that. At the end of the day, as the nature of work changes, as the tools to be successful at work change, there's this potential. This is something the mayor and I and the county executive talked about quite a bit, right? The whole basis of the Syracuse Surge is, how do we, in a moment where we need to build a digital and technology-based economy, because that's where the market is, how do we ensure that we don't leave more people behind? Because historically, tech has been exclusive as opposed to inclusive. Talk to us about the work you're doing at Microsoft Philanthropies and how that plays in here.
That's such a great question. And, I think basically the point of my role, right, at the company. And right at the beginning of COVID, our CEO, Satya Nadella, mentioned that there were 2 years of digital transformation in the first 2 months of COVID. And it's just skyrocketed from there. And so if you think about that trajectory, truly, like, we had to learn how to live, go to school, order food, order products from our personal assistant, and also work, all digitally in those 2 years. So, and especially with hybrid work and how kind of the transformation of work, like you're mentioning, Rob, it's just going to continue to grow. And so, I love what you were saying, Jennifer, about we really need to align what people are hiring for the jobs, and the curriculum that students are learning. Who here has difficulty right now finding at least one role in their company? Raise your hand. Right? Like, it's so many people are really struggling to find the people with the right skills. So how do we make sure that skills alignment is happening? That is kind of one of the main points and purposes of how we really bring that digital fluency to the table. But you know what? It's not about that, because I always get asked, hey, what's the one digital skill that everybody, is it cyber? Is it data? Is it programming? What is it? And my answer always is, it's actually what Melanie was saying. It's resiliency. It's having the growth mindset. It's being able to learn new skills over and over again, because that's going to be the world that we're living in. And the other major gap is actually the network gap. Because it's about people who don't have access and connections. If I don't have intergenerational people who have done these jobs that I'm looking for, how am I going to know who is going to connect me? Same question. How many people got a cold resume dropped and that's how you found your job? Probably very few people. It was always somebody who introduced you to somebody who introduced you to somebody. So those are the things that we're really thinking about at Microsoft, and really not us ourselves, but really empowering nonprofits who are in the community and do that really well, organizations like CenterState. So it's the skills, but it's really the resiliency, and it's also the network gap as well.
I think that the network gap, I'm actually looking at Miche, our partners at UMIA. I think this is one of the reasons why that partnership is so valuable, because there are so many in our community that haven't always been served, that need access, that want access, that have skills and desire to contribute. And I think it's partnerships like that that help us make sure that we're not leaving people behind. Jennifer, it is not lost on me. I think I saw the superintendent here at the city school district when I walked in earlier today. Not lost on me that when you talk about the investments that Amazon is making, the ways in which you want to partner in the community, the very first investment you made, the biggest investment you made, the way that you entered our marketplace was to place a bet on our regional STEAM school, the first science, technology, engineering, arts, and math school of its kind in New York State, a project that our community, our mayor, county exec, the business community has fought for, the school district for years, and you guys came in and made a major bet. Talk to us about both the practical impact of technology and robotics on your workforce, but also the symbolic importance of the STEAM school investment.
Sure. So I mean, quite simply, technology and innovation fuel our business. And, that's on the corporate side, obviously. And, Amazon started off as a bookstore out of a garage, and now, we're obviously something vastly different than that. And we continue to evolve and innovate. And it's really important, not just on that kind of macro evolution of the business, but the technology and innovation that's in our robotics fulfillment center in Clay that's about to open is state of the art, and these workers will be sort of managing that technology, and there's obviously a baseline of digital literacy needed on our operations network as well. So it's incredibly important. The STEAM school is a huge part of that for us. I mean, we did place a big bet. It's a $1.75 million bet on the STEAM school at Syracuse Central, and that's because we're betting on the students to, be our employees of the future. And I think what's, incredibly important, and Naria hit on this, is, the STEM education that these students will receive will prepare them for the jobs of the future. But what's also going to be critical, and what is, most impressive about, the STEAM school, is that there are also going to be apprenticeship opportunities and that networking and all of the different kind of wraparound services that these students will need to be successful, in technology, but also in life. And so, we're thrilled to make that investment. We think it's the right thing to do for Syracuse, but it's also, hopefully a little bit self-interested, because these will be our employees, in the future. So I can't wait to see, what happens with that school and continue to be engaged, both at the high school level, but then also, the partnerships that they have with SUNY and ensuring that, there's that stepping stone and there's that pipeline to the jobs that, we're hiring for, and, hopefully they'll all come work for us at Amazon one day.
Well, I like to think too, maybe this is just, I'm deluding myself in my own mind, but I like to think that you're also betting on our ability as a community to deliver all the other elements associated with that pipeline, to provide all the other supports, the social supports and the emotional supports and the community health supports, in order to help students get into that pipeline, stay in that pipeline, come out through that pipeline, and be in a position where they could come to work for you. It's incredibly gratifying. We're deeply grateful. I think the thing that I'd want to just probe on a little bit next is this idea of how much expectations of corporate leaders are changing, have changed. I mean, I think especially over the last couple of years, we've seen an acceleration of the rate of change. I think it was happening before, to some extent, maybe driven by a lack of confidence in some of our elected officials, not our local elected officials, but in some of our elected officials at different levels, a loss of confidence in government and the public sector being replaced by a greater level of expectation on the private sector. And both of your organizations, I think, have a tremendous amount to offer. But in particular, I think about issues of racial justice, of social justice, things that had historically been outside of the scorecard for many in corporate boardrooms that are now very central, right? Environmental sustainability. Talk to us a little bit about your corporate philosophy as it relates to these issues, and how and where both of your companies are positioning themselves as leaders in this critical space.
Sure. Well, I just want to make one point on the uniqueness of all of the assets here, Rob, that you're talking about within Syracuse and within Central New York. And I think there is a lot of ways, and I think this goes to kind of our philosophy, I think, too, so I'll circle back to that. But you all have all of the tools and resources here already, and all of the amazing people. And the work, like we always have this motto, the truth is in the field, right? You've heard that before. And the closer and closer you can get to the field and the people who are actually being impacted, the more, those people can be empowered to chart their own course. So the ways I think that Microsoft really tries to approach social impact and our societal impact pillars, we have 4 of them. Let's see if I could do them without too much coffee either, to your point, which is inclusive economic opportunity, environmental sustainability, fundamental rights, and then earning trust. Nailed it. So there are 4 pillars, and each of those pillars, we think about them to say, hey, what's the problem we're trying to solve within that pillar? And this is not my work, but I'll use it as an example with environmental sustainability. We thought, hey, not only do we want to be net negative, carbon neutral, we want to be carbon negative since the founding of Microsoft. That's the problem we want to solve, because that's what the universe that we can control in that. And then we take a look at, what can we, Microsoft specifically, do to help within skills. For us, we say we have lots of products, and we can help people skill on those products, and we can do that in a free way and provide certifications as well for free. So as an example of what can Microsoft do. And then we always take that approach of we can't do it alone. So who are going to be the partners that we can go alongside, maybe sometimes lead in coalition, but always through partnership. So Rob, one of the points you asked about, private sector, what's the role of CEOs, what are the role of leaders? I think the role of the private sector is to act in partnership, really truly in partnership, and bring together in kind of a neutral way the public sector, as well as universities and school systems, as well as nonprofit organizations. We have a colleague over at the MasterCard Foundation who said it really well. If you want to go deep, go with nonprofits. If you want to go wide, go with governments. If you want to go fast, go with the private sector. But if you truly want to make an impact in society, you need all 3 of those legs of the stool. So that's really what I hope that, the CEOs at companies like Microsoft and companies like Amazon, that we can, that we can come together in partnership with all those other entities and groups. And by the way, my sister worked in books at Amazon, so we have that in common.
I love that, Nuria. I think it's not easy, Rob, because, working especially in public policy at Amazon, we get asked to sign on to every single issue on every single, letter. And, I think the most important thing for the private sector to do, and, what our CEO tries to live, is just to be authentic. We're going to opine on things that are true to our core values. But it's not really our place to be everything to everyone either. So I think that's sort of where we're trying to find that sweet spot, is how do we be authentic and impactful, and thankfully for issues like racial and social justice, it is core to who we are. We have a very diverse set of customers that come from every single walk of life. And so it's important for us to show up for those customers in a way that's, inclusive, and, the goal is that our employees would feel that same way, and our employees would be a reflection of the customers that we serve. And we foster that culture of inclusion, and it becomes the norm. But we also can't just, say that. We've got to live it. And so on the policy front, nationally, we've actually stepped out and supported, the George Floyd Act. I think we're one of the few, maybe the only Fortune 500 company to support that. We're also weighing in on, some may see as controversial legislation in DC, the MORE Act, which is the legislation that would end the federal prohibition on cannabis. What we're seeing in a lot of states is that it's been an economic driver, and so we're trying to make state laws match the federal laws. Because we've also seen that, we stopped drug testing for marijuana for many of our jobs, because it was a barrier to employment for a lot of folks that, quite frankly, needed a second chance. And so we're trying to kind of, not just issue statements on issues like that, but really be true to the core values of our company, and weigh in on some of those public policy issues that we feel like are going to be impactful for our employees and our customers and the communities that we serve. But it's not easy. And I think, there are ways for companies to sort of engage in a truly authentic way. And there are some times where, we don't always get it right. So it's definitely a work in progress.
Yeah, I just say if it was easy, they wouldn't call it leadership, right? So we're almost at time. I want to ask one last question. We'll call it the lightning round. I think Microsoft, it's just so gratifying for me to have Microsoft and Amazon on the stage here in our community because you're both global corporations that are most often associated with larger cities, places like Seattle and bigger places. And it's not lost on me that there are more places like Syracuse in this country and in this world than there are like Seattle. And that doesn't minimize the importance of our big metros, but we have always found ourselves in our community work trying to fight for relevance and mind share from national attention, national philanthropy, national corporations. I'd love to just hear from both of you. One thing that a place like Central New York, where we can add value to your business, and one thing that you hope through engaging and partnering with us, you might learn from a place like Central New York. I didn't prep you both for this question, and I apologize, but...
Well, I grew up in Seattle when it was more like Syracuse, and it's like Seattle. So I think one thing that I'm like, where is the next Microsoft, and where is the next Amazon? It can be from here. It can be from Syracuse, and that's why we're so excited to learn. We have I know it's lightning round, but we have a couple of projects in like smaller, rural, more mid-sized cities in the U.S. And we've learned so much from those cities. Fargo, Cheyenne, kind of smaller, but the energy there is incredible, and the startup community especially is incredible. So that's why I'm super excited to learn more from CenterState about the Syracuse surge, especially the entrepreneurs that are being supported, because I think that the next Microsoft and Amazon, it's going to be from here. There's one of you in this room.
All right. People can get excited about that.
Let's do it.
All right, close us out, Jenna.
Well, I grew up not in Seattle, but in Tip O'Neill's congressional district in Boston, where all politics is local. So give me a couple beers and my accent will show, I promise. But in any case, I think one of the really exciting things about Syracuse is we can get stuff done. There's government, public sector, private sector partners that are all willing to work together to get stuff done. All of the pettiness aside, everybody really in this room is in it for the right reasons, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of that. And CenterState's been an amazing convener of opportunities like this, but I think it's really fun to show cities like New York City and Seattle how much we're getting done here, and I think that's what sets Syracuse apart and other kind of mid-sized cities, because the results are tangible. The fact that we're going to be able to bring 1,500 plus new jobs to this community with the same benefits that I have and that our CEO has. I'm living this because one of my team members is going on maternity leave, and it's 20 weeks of paid leave. And our hourly workforce gets that same benefit. I mean, those are good jobs that we're bringing here to this region, and we're super excited about that. And I'm really thrilled to see how we can, better embed our growing footprint here into the work that's happening, and really get stuff done. So appreciate it.
Our partners, your partners, Naria Santa Lucia, Jennifer Cruikshank, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been great.
Thank you.